You're sitting, hemmed in your airline seat, distracting yourself with a game on your tablet, but then you feel a light shudder go through the plane, followed by a sudden lurch downwards. Oh, not the turbulence! I thought the weather app said it would be fine. You grip the armrest, waiting for the plane to please get back into a steady, stable flight, uninterrupted with any unexpected and frankly, upsetting movements. If you've experienced anything like this, then you're probably not a big fan of flying or travel involving planes. You might find yourself avoiding these and that limiting your life. And you're not alone. The prevalence of flying anxiety ranges from 2.5% to 40% of the population, with the lower estimates being from professional diagnoses and the higher end from self-diagnosis. But did you know that there are actually 2 different types of anxiety that cause this? There is the classic fear of the plane crashing and killing or maiming you terribly. Then there is another, less well-known but very common fear that flying will trigger a panic attack. This one is actually panic disorder, but is easily mistaken for a fear of flying because we so often label things by our external circumstances. You're in a plane, flying, and feeling anxious, so it's fear of flying, right? Well, that's where this video might clear some things up. It's always very useful to get into the real cause of what's making you anxious, so you can do the most effective treatment. So, how can you tell which kind you have? Have a think about what your brain fears will happen when you go on a flight. Is it something going wrong with the plane, the wings, the engines, the landing gear failing, or is it something going wrong with you? The things people fear going wrong with panic inside of themselves are 1. Something's physically wrong, like I'll have a heart attack or run out of air. 2. I'll go insane and lose my mind if this panic gets any worse. 3. I'm going to lose control of my actions and do something dangerous or embarrassing, like kicking open the emergency door while in flight in my panic to escape. If any of those 3 sound familiar, you might be dealing with a fear of adrenal sensations, or panic. Or if you identified with the fears around the plane crashing, then it'll be more along those classic aerophobia or aviophobia lines. Now, both of these will likely involve anticipatory anxiety leading up to your flight, and as you board the plane and wait for takeoff, with worry that maybe you should get off now while you still can. And both can involve an extreme dislike of turbulence, and maybe takeoff or landing, and a careful watching of the air hostess to see if she's had to take a seat and buckle her seatbelt. But these come up for different reasons. With the fear of crashing, you're anticipating that and looking for signs that that may be about to happen. While with the panic fear, you're expecting panic to be triggered by the turbulence or the final shutting of the doors. And a concern that in triggering the panic, you've doomed yourself to the threat your brain has associated with it, dying, insanity, and or loss of social status. With the panic disorder version, you likely, but not always, experience this anxiety in other situations too. Commonly other situations that are hard to escape from, such as trains, subways, buses, cinemas, restaurants, work meetings, and being stuck in highway traffic. These may hold the similar theme of being a form of travel, and thus restricting your life to the little corner of the world nearest your house. And the treatment for both of these causes of fear of flying is different. When your anxiety is about the plane crashing, then effective treatment involves learning more about how flying works, as this can be poorly understood when there's a fear of flying or crashing, and informed more by movies of exploding planes, or very occasionally from the news. Following the September 11 attacks, many Americans chose to travel by car instead of flying, and because of the extra traffic, there was an increase in traffic accidents. Most of us realize that driving is less safe than flying. In fact, the drive to the airport is statistically more dangerous than the flight part of the trip. But the midbrain can struggle even when we do understand technically that planes can glide even if both engines were to stop, and that it's probably one of the safer things we could do that day. That's because the midbrain runs off of assumptions, and you can only change those by feeding it experience. That means step-by-step exposure, the brain getting to see that the airport's safe, taking off is safe, turbulence, landing, etc. And this needs to be done with no safety behaviors like keeping an eye on the wing to make sure nothing's wrong with it, or gripping the armrests. These just convince the brain that we did something that prevented the plane crash and keep the anxiety going. Nowadays, you can even do some of this exposure in virtual reality, experiencing the sights and sounds of flying from your home. Pretty nifty stuff. If you'd like me to review options for doing that kind of treatment, let me know in the comments below. Studies show that CBT treatment like this tends to reduce people's anxiety by around 80%. Imagine only having 20% of your current anxiety about flying. And that's similar for the panic side of things as well. Treatment for flying anxiety caused by panic disorder consists of systematically working through the associations of each adrenal sensation, like a pounding heart and sweating, with danger. Breaking those associations so you don't feel yourself tensing on the flight. Assume it means you're going to die, go crazy, or do something crazy and panic. Instead, you feel those adrenal sensations and stay out of the escalating cycle of panic, remaining calm and collected. You trust yourself to be okay. If you know someone who's struggling with a fear of flying, do share this video with them so they can figure out what's going on for them. And I'd love to help out with what you're going through. So if you want help identifying the cause of your anxiety or further assistance, have a chat with me down in the comments below. See you down there.